You think you're doing fine with money. You pay your bills. You avoid unnecessary spending. You have something saved up. Maybe not a lot, but something. And that something sits there, steady, quiet, untouched, and somewhere in the back of your mind, there's a small, comfortable feeling. A feeling that says, I'm okay. But what if that feeling is wrong? Not slightly wrong, not off by a little. What if that feeling of financial safety is the exact thing keeping you from actually being safe? You're not building wealth, you're slowly losing it, and the worst part, you can't see it happening. So here's the question I want you to sit with for the next few minutes. How do you lose money without spending it? How does your balance stay the same? Same number, same account, same place, while something is quietly draining away? The answer isn't dramatic. It doesn't involve a scam. It doesn't require a mistake. It doesn't need you to do anything wrong. It just requires time. And it's already happening. I'm going to explain this clearly. No complicated formulas, no technical jargon, just the truth, the way it actually works in real life for real people. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Most people have a version of this story. You work, you get paid, you cover your expenses, and whatever is left, you save it. You put it somewhere you can reach it, somewhere it won't disappear, somewhere reliable, and you feel responsible. Because you are being responsible. You didn't blow it. You didn't make some impulsive decision you'd regret. You did the sensible thing. You also probably avoid thinking too hard about what to do with that money. Maybe you've looked into investing once or twice. Maybe you found it confusing or risky, or just not the right time. So you leave it where it is, for now, until things feel more stable, until you know more, until you're ready. This is how most people think about money, not reckless, not careless. Careful, measured, waiting for the right moment, and on the surface, it looks perfectly reasonable. But underneath, something is quietly going wrong. Here's the hidden problem. Money that sits still is not neutral. That's the part most people never hear. We're taught to think of money as a number, a fixed thing. A number is just a number. It doesn't change unless you add something or take something away. But money doesn't work like a number in a vacuum. Money exists inside an economy. And that economy never stops moving. Think of it like this. Imagine you have a block of ice. You don't touch it. You don't do anything with it. You just leave it there. But it's sitting in a room with rising temperature. And slowly, so slowly you barely notice, it starts to melt. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't make a mistake. But the environment around it changed, and the ice got smaller. Your money is the block of ice. Or think of it another way. Imagine a container that's leaking. Not a dramatic leak, not a flood, just a slow, constant drip. You look at the container every day, and it looks mostly the same. But over weeks, over months, over years, the level keeps dropping. That's what happens to money that doesn't move. Or think of a moving walkway at an airport. You step onto it, you stand still, and you think you're staying in one place. But everyone walking beside you, everyone who's actually moving, keeps getting further ahead. You're not going backward, but you're falling behind. Same starting point, same discipline, different outcomes, because standing still in a moving world is not the same as staying in place. Let's talk about what's actually happening. Simply, practically. Every year, the cost of things goes up, not dramatically, usually a few percent. The groceries you buy, the rent you pay, the services you use, the things you'll eventually need, they get more expensive. Slowly, consistently, year after year. That process has a name, inflation. But forget the name, just think about what it means. If everything around you gets more expensive by, say, 3% a year, then your money needs to grow by at least that much just to keep pace. Not to get ahead, just to keep pace. If it doesn't grow, then every year your money buys less. Not because the number changed, but because the world changed around it. $100 today will not buy what $100 bought 10 years ago. And 10 years from now, it will buy less than it buys today. Your savings account might show the same number, but the power behind that number is shrinking. That's the first invisible cost. The second one is harder to explain. but just as real. It's not just that your money loses value over time, it's that time itself is a resource. And when your money sits still, you're spending that resource without getting anything back. Every year that passes is a year your money could have been growing. Slowly at first, then faster. That's how compounding works, not in a flashy way, but quietly, patiently, over decades. Each year builds on the last. When money sits idle, those years don't come back. The opportunity is gone, and you never felt it leave. Now here's where it gets psychological. Because if all of this is true, why do people still choose to keep money sitting still? It's not because they're uninformed. It's not because they don't care. It's because of something much deeper. Fear, not irrational fear, real, understandable fear. When you invest money, when you put it somewhere it can grow, there's a chance it goes down. And that chance feels real. It feels immediate. It feels like losing something you actually have. When you keep money in an account, it doesn't go down. The number stays the same. And that stability feels like protection. What people are doing is a trade-off. They're trading the invisible risk, the slow erosion over time, for something that feels like safety, something they can see. And that makes complete psychological sense. We are wired to respond to visible threats more strongly than invisible ones. A sudden drop in your account balance feels like danger. A gradual reduction in purchasing power over 10 years feels like nothing. Because you can't see it. You don't feel it on any given day. The mind doesn't sound an alarm for slow things, and so the slow thing keeps happening, quietly, constantly, without any signal. This brings us to the most important idea in this entire video. The risk you can see feels dangerous. The risk you can't see feels safe. Read that again. The risk you can see, a market fluctuation, a potential loss, an uncertain return, triggers caution. It feels like the responsible thing to avoid it. The risk you can't see, the erosion of value, the cost of waiting, the opportunity that never comes back, doesn't trigger anything. It just happens. And so people protect themselves from the visible risk by exposing themselves to the invisible one. They avoid the thing that feels dangerous and accept the thing that actually is. This is not a moral failure. It's not stupidity. It's how human minds work. We evolved to respond to immediate visible threats. We did not evolve to feel the slow costs of inaction across years and decades, but knowing this changes things. Let's put two people next to each other, same age, same income, same discipline, both careful with money, neither one reckless. The first person saves consistently. Every month they put money aside. It goes into an account where it's safe. It stays there. Over 20 years they've saved a significant amount. They feel good about it. The second person also saves, the same amounts, the same consistency. But instead of leaving it in place, they put it to work. Not in anything complicated, not in anything volatile, just in something that grows steadily over time. After 20 years, both people saved the same amount, but their outcomes are not the same. The second person's money has been compounding, growing on itself, not dramatically in any single year, but accumulating across all of them. The gap between the two isn't just the returns, it's the time. Every year the money was growing added to every year before it. The first person worked just as hard, was just as disciplined, but their money sat still, and the world kept moving. Same effort, different result, not because one person was smarter, not because one took reckless risks, but because one understood that money in motion works differently than money at rest. Let me make this even more concrete. Think about what you could buy with your savings right now. Think about what you expect to need in 10 years, in 20 years. The gap between those two things is not fixed. It grows every year. Because everything you'll need will cost more. The living expenses, the housing, the health care, the life you're planning. And if your money isn't keeping pace with that growth, the gap doesn't stay the same. It widens. It widens while you feel safe. It widens while nothing dramatic happens. It widens in silence. And the people who realize this late, not because they were careless, but because no one clearly explained the invisible cost of waiting, face a version of the future they weren't expecting. Not a disaster, not a collapse, just a shortfall. Just the quiet realization that the safety they felt wasn't quite what they thought it was. So what does this mean practically? I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do with your money. That's not the point of this video. Specific decisions depend on your situation, your goals, your timeline, your risk tolerance. But here's the shift in thinking that matters. Money is not meant to sit. It's meant to move, not recklessly, not blindly, but intentionally. Money is a tool, and tools don't do anything sitting in a drawer. A hammer sitting in a garage doesn't build a house. A seed sitting on a shelf doesn't become a tree. The question isn't whether your money is safe. The question is whether your money is working. Because it's always doing one of two things. It's moving forward, growing, compounding, keeping pace with the world. Or it's standing still, which means in real terms it's falling behind. There is no neutral. There is no option where you simply pause the game and wait. The game keeps going. Every day. Whether you're playing or not. Now, what does putting money to work actually mean? It doesn't have to mean picking stocks. It doesn't have to mean following markets every day. It doesn't have to mean taking on risk you don't understand. It means allocation. It means deciding, intentionally, where your money goes and what it does while it's there. Some of it should be accessible, liquid, available for emergencies or near-term needs. That part should be in a safe, accessible place. That makes sense. But not all of it. Not the part that isn't needed for years, because that part has time on its side, and time, in the world of money, is not just a resource, it's a multiplier. The sooner money starts moving, the longer it has to compound. The longer it has to compound, the larger the eventual difference. The cost of waiting isn't just the time you wait, it's every year of compounding that time represents. You can't get that time back, but you still have time now. That's the part worth focusing on. Let me bring this back to where we started. You think you're doing fine with money, and maybe in some ways you are. Maybe you've built a habit. Maybe you've been careful. Maybe you've avoided real mistakes. But there's a difference between not making mistakes and actively moving forward. And the invisible cost of standing still, the erosion, the lost opportunity, the widening gap, that cost doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care how careful you've been. It doesn't care how responsible you feel. It just keeps running in the background, quietly, constantly. You're not doing nothing with your money. You're choosing a direction even if you didn't realize it. Every day that your money sits still is a day you chose that direction. Maybe it was the right choice for that moment. Maybe there were real reasons. That's okay. This isn't about guilt. But now you see what was invisible before, and knowing changes what comes next. So ask yourself this and really sit with it. What is your money actually doing while you think it's safe?